Hello, you guys. We have arrived at episode 8 of Reference Wednesdays, and unfortunately, it's no longer Wednesday, but shh. Let's face it, most of you weren't gonna watch this on a Wednesday anyway, so yeah, alright. In this video, I decided to revisit figure drawing tips. I made a video titled 5 Crucial Tips to Improve Drawing Figures, in which I picked the 5 most important things I could think of at the moment, and there were several that did not make the cut because I exhausted my typing limits, but I made a mental note to make a separate video for those, and here we are. While I explain what this video will be about, what you're seeing is some warm-ups I did using a really fun and indulgent reference pack called Girls and Guns. This reference pack was made by Studio Graphite as usual. I highly recommend their super high quality photo reference packs. You can find the links in my description along with a 20% off discount code that you can use if you wish to purchase any of their reference packs. Links in the description like I mentioned. So yeah, okay. First, let me tell you what the tips in this video will be. Only 3, unfortunately, for reasons I will explain a little bit later, but yeah. Number 1, the 50-50 rule, which is 50% observation and 50% logic. Number 2, connecting the head to the torso. And number 3, the mind-body connection. Sounds vague, I know, but I'll get to it. Sometime between the planning and the executing stage, I unfortunately experienced a massive downward energy spike and had to reduce the number of tips from 5 to 3. I'm sorry. Honestly, guys, I've just been kind of having a rough week and having a lot of trouble staying motivated and such, and being down in the dumps and whatever. But hopefully this will pass like it usually does pretty quickly. So moving on, I will go over each of these with a bit more detail and explain why I think they're so important to keep in mind. Connecting certain body parts are pretty self-explanatory, but I will show you how I tend to approach it in a straightforward and simplistic way to the best of my ability. So here we go. First step, the 50-50 rule. I'm sure there's some other name for this, but to me, this was something I swiftly caught onto when I started doing a ton of figure drawing at school, which was Sheridan College for animation for me. And yeah, unfortunately, I have to say that this rule is applicable to its highest effect only when you actually know bone and muscle structure relatively well, which comes with a ton of practice and time. But even if you don't know this stuff super well, it's still relevant and useful in my opinion. So the 50-50 rule essentially requires you to spend 50% of your energy on observing and the other 50 on comprehending what you're looking at and making judgment calls without being 100% reliant on what you see in the reference. Now, I know that this might sound pretty similar to some other things that I've discussed before, but I do kind of think that this is just another angle of looking at it, and perhaps it'll be good information to reiterate and explain in a different way. So I will try to explain it in a couple of different ways to the best of my ability. So firstly, typically what you get taught at art class is a ton of tips on how to purely observe and measure what you see. Things such as paying attention to negative spaces, paying attention to the distance between certain landmarks, body parts, or the angles of the shoulders and hips, etc. And I do think that all of this is 100% correct and necessary information that you need to learn and apply, and these are the things that you should be doing while you're drawing something either from life or from a photo. However, if you only rely on these things to put down your figure, it might end up mangled and leave you wondering what went wrong and at what point did your drawing end up falling apart. Well, in my opinion, that point would be forgetting to just use your logic and making comprehensive choices rather than purely observational ones. This means pausing now and then to quickly assess your progress without looking at the reference photo or the source of what you're trying to draw, and looking at the drawing only and seeing if it looks off just in itself, by itself, and fixing something based on what you think would make it look more believable or correct without comparing it to the reference material. This is where the meat of learning and digesting information actually takes place, in my opinion, because it really makes you retain this information in a way that kind of allows you to use it over and over again without having to have something to look at for reference. Sorry, that sentence was super convoluted, but hopefully it came across in an understandable way. So yeah, oftentimes a reference photo can obviously be a bit hard to see or not perfectly lit in all places, or it could be very skewed in terms of perspective, or even a little bit skewed. Maybe the lens warped the body a bit, or basically there are a million reasons as to why your goal should never be to just capture the photo exactly, but instead make sense of it so that it is in fact clearer in your drawing than it is in the actual photo. I know this sounds kind of advanced maybe, and it might be, but the faster you start to at least try doing this, the more natural I think it will become to you. So to recap, rely on your reference only 50% of the time and periodically assess your drawing on its own without looking back and forth at the reference. See what you can fix in your drawing without the reference. I do this all the time personally, and I never aim for 100% accuracy, only for a drawing that I personally find believable and nice to look at, which is thus successful to me. So yes, 50% observation and 50% logic. And on to the next step. Number 2, connecting the head to the torso. Only the most common point of difficulty for beginners from what I have observed, and my god, did I have trouble with this back in the day. So some years ago, it was basically the friggin' bane of my existence when it came to drawing characters. Back in the days when I pretty much exclusively drew from imagination and constantly tried to just brute force my way to better art, I would get massively stuck specifically on connecting the head to the body. And the fact that I usually started drawing with the face probably didn't help. So pro tip, do not do this. If you're gonna start way up there, at least draw the whole head first. Starting with the face is a bad move, unless you're just that brilliant, in which case, carry on. But for the rest of us, at least drawing the head/skull first is absolutely a must, I think. So yeah. Anyway, in order to successfully connect the head to the torso, you will actually need to know a little bit about muscles. So in particular, there's one set of muscles that you must know about, and it is the sternocleidomastoid. I know it's a mouthful, but very simple. I certainly do not know any other neck muscles, so I get by just fine knowing just the one. These muscles, one on each side, are basically the bridges that connect a head to a torso. It's very easy to spot because they're usually very visible, especially when a person like puts their head up or something or looks to the side. And if you understand where it is structurally, you will be able to easily connect a head to a torso in pretty much any position. You should probably also know where the clavicles are and how they sit on top of the rib cage and connect to the scapula in the back as well. But this stuff is actually pretty simple too, and once you get the hang of it, it's it'll go much easier for you. Okay, so here is a good place to let you guys know that I am planning to make an in-depth course about simple figure drawing in the near future. I will most likely put this course on either Skillshare or my Gumroad or something to that effect. I don't know, I will figure it out. But I want to take all the tips that I've been dishing out so far in my previous videos as well and explain them in more thoroughly with real-time demos as I explain things. So the reason why I haven't been doing this thus far is because honestly I just don't want to do it for free, and who can blame me, because it's a ton of work. Even these videos are actually usually more work than I expect them to be, but that's okay because I still want to make free content for you guys regularly as well. So yeah, I will let you know more about this and how my progress is going. It's still gonna be probably like a couple of months from now at least, because I do have a lot on my plate at the moment. But yeah, anyway, back to the sternocleidomastoid. So yes, just remember that this muscle originates where the clavicles meet in the center at the front on its respective side and insert behind the ears. So it's basically like a straight line down from the clavicle and up to right behind the ear. And for the back of the head, just make sure you know where the center is, which would be the spine, because the spine is what connects to the base of the skull, and you can see a bit of the sternocleidomastoid from the back as well. The rest is trapezius and whatever is underneath that. I personally only know the bare minimum and the surface layer of the muscular structure, which so far to me is more than enough, especially since I seldom draw bodybuilders and whatnot. So yeah, moving on. The last thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about is the mind-body connection, as I call it. This point is a bit out there, but I'll talk about it anyway, because why not? I've personally always found that if I draw anatomy in a severely wonky way, I can almost like physically feel the wrongness in that particular region of my own body. And I think maybe this comes from observing a lot, perhaps just paying a lot of attention to how your own body moves, or actually feeling the surface of certain areas, especially where there's bone protrusions. So for instance, you can just take the time to trace your clavicles with your fingertips and just feel how they bend and wrap around your shoulders and come to a point which then wraps around into the scapula on your back. And I think this is actually a really important thing to do. At least to me it has been and still is anyways, because after all, you're not drawing some alien creature or like trying to come up with things out of thin air. Like, your body is at the end of the day like the best reference at your own disposal. So you've got a mirror and you've got your hands, and you can like feel all the bone protrusions and the landmarks for yourself, which I think is extremely helpful in my opinion. At least it has been to me over the years. So yeah, unfortunately I don't know how to explain this particularly well, but I think that building a bridge between what you draw and what you feel to be correct is a big part of it. At least as a human, you can definitely instantly tell when anatomy looks really broken and wrong, mostly because it's something that you're already very familiar with, because obviously you're a person, you see people all the time, and we're constantly just focused on people. And using that familiarity to your advantage is a very useful thing when you draw people. Also, don't get bogged down by things you perceive to be a barrier, such as lack of knowledge and whatnot. I do think it's good to always encourage yourself to trust intuition to at least some degree, and just let yourself take guesses, make mistakes, and then fix them as you see fit. Obviously, I'm not discounting actual studying and learning the proper terminology and theoretical stuff at all. It's very important that you do, especially if you want to get to a very high level. But it's also still supplemental in my opinion. I personally believe that intuition is the biggest component of making art at the end of the day. And of course, it can be mixed with the use of reference and the stuff that you've already learned. So it's a good mixed bag of things, and intuition is just one of them. So yeah, all in all, intuition is important, and so is studying and structural components of human anatomy, such as bones and muscles and whatnot. And sometimes, I must admit, I get a little bit sick of talking about anatomy and figure drawing all the time. I think I may be approaching a point where I just want to go back to ink and watercolors and take some time to just draw my characters traditionally. I just think I have reached a little bit of a, whatchamacallit, how do I put this? I often swap back and forth between digital and traditional mediums, and I usually do it in bursts, and I think I am approaching the end of my digital art burst. So yeah, I just thought I'd let you guys know. I don't do vlogs, but sometimes I am compelled to catch up with you guys here on YouTube on a more personal level, but I don't think this video is the right place to do so. I think soon I will make a casual, themeless video to just talk about what's happening with my art stuff these days. But until then, I wanted to thank you guys so much, as always, for watching my video, and I hope you got something useful out of it, and I will see you in my next one, which incidentally happens to be tomorrow, which is kind of a bonus surprise, I guess. But yeah, like I mentioned, the pack that I used in this video is called Girls and Guns, and you can get it from Studio Graffiti on Gumroad in the link in my description. They are also on ArtStation, I believe, but if you use the Gumroad link and use the 20% off code that's provided in my description as well, I will get a small commission from your purchase, which will greatly help me with my artistic endeavors and keeping up with this channel. So yeah, so I'm just gonna leave the rest of this recording running, and when it reaches the end, I will also include a little snippet of a portrait that I did of this girl who is featured in this reference pack. I really like her poses. I think they were so much fun to work on, and so I decided to do a tiny portrait. It's pretty quick, so I'm just gonna leave it in real time, and I will include some timestamps in the description below. Alright, see you guys in the next one. Bye!